Welcome back, pet parent. So excited for today's episode. We're doing something a little different. The format is a little different today, but I think it's going to be super, super fun. I actually have two guests for you today. We have BC Hinchin, who has been around in the pet food industry forever at this point, and Dr. Kathy Alanovi, who is with Next Generation Pet Food Manufacturers Association. Did I get that right?
You got it.
We're going to talk about pet food safety today. This is something I really haven't covered that much on the podcast. I mean, if I think about it, like I've talked to Billy about it. That's pretty much the only person I talked to about it and on the podcast. And I'm just really interested to get like your back and forth on this because I mean, as a consumer, I have my own opinions. I want to hear what you two, as professionals on kind of opposing sides of the spectrum, have to say about this. So I'm going to welcome BC and Dr. Kathy.
It's like, really? Because I thought BC and I were on the same side. So, all right, BC, where are you coming from?
Well,
Risky
we
me.
are on similar roads. I have really, Jessica just touched on it. I have found myself being a consumer more because I was removed from the retail pet food world for a little bit. So I started having a lot of concerns.
Okay. So interesting. So, what have you found? Catch
Well,
me up.
and let's
You.
start. Certainly, a lot of this was H1N1, the latest bird flu. That was certainly an issue that started exposing a lot of things. But let me back up a little bit. And, I'm doing what I would say is the honeymoon period's over for raw. I don't understand why we don't have peer-reviewed studies on raw. I don't understand why we don't have more white paper on raw. And I don't understand why we are still getting the trade secret BS line because, and I'll tell you, I had a conversation not just 2 weeks ago with the manufacturer, and he said, I can't tell you where we're manufactured. I can't tell you who formulates us. That is all trade secrets. We don't want that out in the universe. And I said, Farina or whoever knows exactly where you're manufactured. And if they wanted that facility, they would have that facility. But we're still hearing that. We're still hearing that from raw manufacturers.
You're muted.
I've lost her.
Yeah.
You muted her?
I didn't
I'm
mute her.
sorry. We
Can
had
I-
Bark Fest, and I was trying to make the less bark noise because the 4-pounder sounds like 200 pounds. So
Yeah.
that was a fresh food manufacturer, BC?
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's a load of.
Yeah. I have
But
to
it's
say,
still out there.
for anybody listening and not watching, I can't tell you how much I love Dr. Kathy's faces. Like, I feel like this
Can't
is,
play poker.
I'm looking in the
If you
mirror.
go by
I
my
know.
lack of poker face.
It is like in my tiny little inner circle, like our running joke is that Jessica cannot control her face. I walk around, like I will walk around Super Zoo and my best friend, I'll walk around with her and she'll turn around to me and be like, I can feel your face behind me. You need to chill.
Beautiful. I love it. So, BC, that's unacceptable. And I'm in
But it's
total
still out
agreement
there.
with you. I don't support that. It shouldn't be a secret. Where's consumer transparency? Our fresh, raw, real pet food manufacturers need to not be hiding because consumers have questions, and you're not going to sell your product if you're a secret. People want to know.
Well, and I could tell you that one of those manufacturers, I mean, I don't want to get into names, but there's a manufacturer that's a friend of the real food movement that is not 100% transparent. And they still are able to kind of tout that line where they give a little bit, but they aren't giving the whole story. But let's back up.
Okay.
So I like to do, because I know I just hit you with a lot of things out of the gate, and let's take it step by step. I also am active in the cannabis research involving dogs. And I can give you, Cornell has a study on it that is a peer-reviewed study as it relates to pain in canines and the use of cannabinoid products. Butchering some of those words, but that's what I do. There's also University of Colorado has a lot of research out there that is, again, peer-reviewed white papers. So the hemp manufacturers could easily hang their hat and say, this is proprietary information. We don't need to give it out. There's no federal regulation forcing us to give it out. So why are we hearing that from real food, pet food manufacturers? Why are we not seeing, why are there not peer-reviewed studies? Why are there not more digestibility tests that are public? And that's one of the key things that we aren't seeing is digestibility information released.
Okay, so you're right. You got me. What do I know? What I know is I don't have right here in my hot little hands my answer, but I'm writing it down because one of the things that we're doing at the trade association, so next generation pet food manufacturers, next gen, we represent fresh pet food manufacturers. So it's raw and gently cooked and it's some freeze dried and stuff. We have been challenged with that question. We have a lot of manufacturers who have heard that from their consumers. So I got to write this down because I have old lady brain. You want the peer-reviewed articles. There are peer-reviewed articles. I haven't read them all. I haven't read lots of them. I'm guilty. You know what I've done? I said to a researcher that we're working with, I said, would you put it all together for me, please?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at the waiting for her to put it together and present it because there are over 200 articles that talk about, thank you, digestibility. But what I don't know is digestibility. There, I wrote it down. There are studies that show health benefits of fresh foods, specifically in pets. Digestibility is a really good question. And so I'd have to say, BC, I have to get back to you and I got to actually look at the literature. I commissioned somebody because my plate is full. But you're not which that was really lame, wasn't it? That was my lame cop out. And it's like, man, he caught me right at the beginning with a cop out response. There are studies, and we are looking at putting it together because a lot of our manufacturers are challenged by consumers and veterinarians because there's that perception by veterinarians that there are no studies. It's not true. It's not that there are no studies, it's that they haven't been put together in a giant doorstop. Like it's literally the book from Science Diet that we get in vet school is literally 4 or 5 inches thick. It's like, don't. And people just look at that and they go, ooh, credibility. Well, I could put any bunch of blank page. We don't need to put blank pages because there are studies. It hasn't been organized. And so I'm working on that. Can we have this meeting later?
Digestibility is an interesting
Right.
topic because, one, I think the majority of pet parents don't even know to ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think pet food manufacturers kind of take advantage of the fact that pet parents don't even know to ask that question. People like me who are out here, and I know Dr. Kathy, you do this too, like working one-on-one with pet parents, like we see this. We can see when we're working with a dog specifically, usually dogs, and we can, and we're,
yes.
yeah, we're looking and we're going, oh, we have a digestibility issue here going on. But that, and of course that's anecdotal, right? Like, but that's where science starts. Like with all this
It's
anecdotal
one-on-one.
evidence. Yeah.
What'll be interesting to see, because how do we define digestibility? Because if you take a giant bowl of acid and drop in a bunch of oatmeal, boom, that thing digests right off.
Mm-hmm.
But is that how it really should work in the live animal? There are all these hydrolyzed foods. They're pre-digested. So the animal
Yeah.
doesn't have to digest. Shouldn't their intestines really be doing its natural function of digesting? So Great question, BC. It's on my list of things to do now.
Also, just want to throw in before we move on, I do know, I did hear of just a person who is very scientifically motivated and did her own test in a controlled environment where she like mimicked what the pH of a dog's stomach should be and did kibble, raw food, cooked food, and an insect protein. And the insect protein was horrific. So I just want to throw that out there.
Really?
I just want to throw that out there.
That's fascinating. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, that's
Well,
pretty
and there's a
too.
lot of, well, I won't say a lot, but a couple of those insect protein companies actually have some pretty good digestibility studies, which once again, you get into, can we compare one study to the next study to the next study, because they're all using different criteria and they're looking at different micros and macros. And certainly over my head, there are a couple good pet food manufacturers that post that information immediately and make it available to the pet parents. But digestibility is just one.
All right, pet parents, you already know that I talk all the time about needing to stop as much as we possibly can feeding our fur babies garbage. For lack of a better word, that's what we talk about here a lot. And again, doing the best we can, that is the message above any and everything else. The more we learn, the more we know we need to make some changes. And this episode is powered by Legacy Biome. This is no BS. And this is why I think you need Legacy Biome. So Legacy Biome offers premium. When I say premium, I mean premium FMT, fecal microbiota transplant capsules. These are products for your dog designed to restore and support a healthy gut microbiome. Yes, you heard me. Top tier microbiome therapy straight from nature's playbook. Gut health isn't optional. We talk about this all the time. It's not optional. It drives digestion, immune strength, allergy resistance, mood, and even chronic disease risk. So if your pet's gut is out of whack, their whole system is out of whack. If you learned nothing from me thus far, I think you should know that. So Legacy Biome tells us that their donor animals live on a raw, organic diet in pristine, chemical-free environments, generations bred to preserve a rugged and unaltered microbiome. No antibiotics, no pesticides, no synthetic crap ever. And they screen those donors with the strictest protocols in the industry. Kim's over here next to me, if you can hear her. So if you have a pet that is wrestling with chronic diarrhea, itchy skin, hair loss, allergies, rebounding from antibiotics, that's a thing too. Legacy Biome is your weapon. Heck, you can just use it proactively to build a bulletproof gut and immune health. So don't worry, vets handle this. FMT is administered rectally often through veterinarians' offices, but we don't always have access to that. So what's the next best thing? FMT capsules that are enteric coated that you can get delivered straight to your home from the most pristine donor dogs ever, from Dr. Margot Roman, as a matter of fact. So top integrative vets across North America swear by Legacy Biome. That's not hype. That's physician grade endorsements. If you're ready to stop the gut wreck and start the comeback with your dog, head to legacybiome.com. That is legacybiome.com, legacybiome.com, and get some for your pet. And by the way, let me know how it goes. You know me. You can always reach out to me on Instagram. I'm here to talk to you all the time. I want to know. Let me know about it.
To try Legacy Biome for your dog, visit legacybiome.com and use code TPPR10. That's TPPR10 for 10% off.
You know, if we go back to food safety, and you can help me with this, there's a couple things that, again, have become really evident to me. Number one, and this goes back to AFCO world, but if I pay and actually do a feeding trial with dogs, and I am a raw pet food manufacturer, and Jessica comes along and basically makes the same food, she doesn't have to do a feeding trial, but can say
Yep.
that she meets the
Yep.
guidelines. So
Family of
a lot
food,
of us
because
know that.
you did the research. Yes.
Except, can we say that her formula and my formula are close enough? Shouldn't that be changed in AFCO, even though who
Okay.
knows if AFCO is going to exist in a month or a year? Who
So
knows if FDA is
let's
going to
talk
exist
about
in a year?
people food, though. Let's talk people food. You and I can go buy 4 different kinds of cereal off the shelf. There's zero safety with those.
I wouldn't say zero safety.
Safety studies. So you're talking
Right.
about
Yeah.
complete and balanced and whatever. But all right, let's back up. Define safety, because in my mind, I was expecting you to bring up bird flu and salmonella. And it's interesting you're bringing up digestibility and balance. So let's
Bird
define
flu
safety.
and those, it's still on the paper. We haven't
Okay,
made
good.
it all the way through the paper.
All right.
Get in
This
there. We're
This
getting
is
there.
broad. Okay. I don't know how AFCO came up with all of that. I have my personal, you're recording this. I shouldn't say this. All right, let's say this. You guys have human children. You have the 2-legged kind, right? I got one of them too. I haven't killed it yet, and it's 21 years old. Never once in one day of my daughter's life did I ever 100% complete and balance her diet. Ever.
Okay, sorry, I had to throw that in.
She ain't dead. So that is not me saying, screw it, throw it all out. Balance is irrelevant. It's not important. That's me saying, let's have practical reality. Practical reality is there are vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, protein, fat, carbohydrates that everybody's body needs. Now, speaking of everybody's body, there's 3 of us here. I guarantee you the 3 of us eat differently. I have eaten with both of you. I know what you eat. And we eat differently, and what my body needs is different than what each of your body needs. So there is no such thing as one size fits all. If there were, we would all buy Wheaties and only Wheaties, and we would all have all of our nutritional needs met. There's not. I need different food than each of you does, and my dogs are the same. I have a herd, and everybody has different nutrient needs. So we start with the same basic food, and then we top dress on top based on what each one needs. AFCO can't do that. AFCO said, here's the basis. It's that silly food pyramid that we humans have. That's basically what AFCO is, like it or not. That's what AFCO has done, is tried to say, here's the basics, and we could argue about whether or not things change in a weird way. I get that. But that's the foundation. That's the basics. So sure, BC, if you do the studies that show these 3 ingredients are exactly what 6 dogs needs to make 6 blood values not change over a 6-month period, I see no reason why Jessica can't take the exact same 3 ingredients in the exact same ratio and say, your study's good. Now, if she goes and adds 4 more things, she need to do her own study of 6 dogs over 6 months looking at 6 numbers. It's minimal. It is not detailed. If you look at my body under a microscope, I need different things than you guys do. So
Now, just a little side note, because we all know the late and the great, icon industry, Jacqueline. When I was at trade shows or meetings with her, I had my answers, because at that time, being a founder of Answers, that was her company. I had my Answers goat milk. And I walked around with my quart of Answers goat milk containing my Diet Coke bottle, because
absolutely, because
she
Jacqueline,
would come after
no,
me.
you out. She
Yeah,
is
it
flipping
was
over
it
in
was
her
bad.
grave right now to hear that you admitted to that.
Well, I fessed up at some point, but yeah,
That's funny.
I got the bad end of her several times on my Diet Coke. And I will say till this day, I feed my dogs far better than I feed myself. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt about that. But along that line, when we do talk, so I think that is being used more broadly. I think companies are jumping onto saying, hey, we basically did a feeding trial because we're basically the same. And once again, there's really no enforcement over that. We all know AFCO doesn't enforce anything. Like in the state of
Because
Indiana,
that's not their role. We need to make
right?
sure that our listeners understand AFCO sets guidelines. They are not the regulators. The regulators are those who go to AFCO. It's each state. You're right. You're right, BC. It's a beautiful question.
At the root of
All
that,
I
what
see is
you're
money. In order to have that, it's how much more cost it's going to cost to the pet food manufacturers who want to register in each state if the state is going to evaluate their food to that level. Somebody needs to be responsible for it. You're right. But who's who? The state or the manufacturer or the feds?
I would go back to see, that's where I'm talking about the honeymoon. That's the other thing that I've heard so many times. Hey, we don't have money for that. We're small manufacturers. We're groundbreaking. We are doing things with pet food that have never been done. But again, that was accurate 10 years ago. I mean, when did my first commercially available raw, I started selling 18 years ago, almost 20 years ago. And then the second was Bravo, I think, again, 20 years ago. Those are the people that I absolutely agree with, and Answers for that matter, that, hey, we're breaking ground. We don't have a lot of money here. People don't know what we're doing. But here we are with, a growing, the real food movement has grown leaps and bounds in
So
the
you're
last
still
5 years.
hearing that? That's fascinating.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating because my members are actually doing the studies
Well,
and
and
we're
your
looking at
members
putting it together,
are the
but
cream
it's
of the
not there.
crop. I mean, let's be
True.
real. Your members are the top echelon that understand that they need to be in an association with you, where a
Most
lot
of
of
the
these that
rest
I'm
are like,
talking about.
you should hear what I've
Exactly.
been told. Oh my goodness.
Right.
We're rabble rousers was what one manufacturer said when they stopped being a member. Well, we think you're bucking the system. It's like, hello, what do you think we're here for?
Isn't that the point?
Right. I want to go join my trade association. We want to go with status quo. We want to change nothing. But wait, we make raw pet food. Anyway, that's a very fascinating perspective, BC, because I think I'm over here in La La Land because I don't talk to those people. That's very fascinating. Huh.
And those people, to
I'm
use
writing that
those
down
terms,
also.
I feel like those are the more mass brands. I mean, when you're talking
They
about
are.
kind of the big in the real food movement, those, again, my opinion on Jessica's podcast, my personal opinion, those largest real food manufacturers are some of the worst out there. But those are the ones that have the money to do the research and are not doing it, or they're doing it and they're not releasing it because they don't feel like they have to.
They
And
don't.
they're also the ones that are not interested in helping anybody else. Your members are going to be open,
They are.
which is a nice transition into that food safety, because you can help educate me here. There's a great store that I love who has stopped selling raw milk completely for pets because she considers it too much of a risk because of the lack of cooperation between manufacturers when it comes to when a new risk is discovered. That, if a new risk and they're all talking about one that's in Kenya right now that was found in raw milk. But when a new risk is discovered in the human milk chain, USDA, FDA, all those have requirements for reporting, and then they report to the others, and so on and so forth. I don't know that the same thing would happen. So if we find a new pathogen in goat's milk, does that person have an obligation to report that to USDA or FDA under our current guidelines?
Okay, so do you specifically want to talk bird flu, or you want to talk your mystery Indian pathogen? Let's start with bird flu. Let's start with bird flu.
I'm
Okay.
more concerned about what's out there that we don't know about.
Well, the problem is because we don't know about it, we don't know about it until people get sick. Until people get sick or animals get sick. It's the same way we unfortunately found the melamine thing forever ago. So the FDA and the State Department of Agriculture have actually been very proactive on the raw milk bird flu thing. So far, that's been documented. So the bird flu virus has, at least in the laboratory, been able to be seen to be present in raw cow milk. So because of that, the states that have raw milk, dairies that are registered to make raw cow milk, they are now testing for bird flu. There has been zero evidence so far that the same thing happens in goats. However, my understanding is that the goat farmers are being proactive and they are testing anyway because they want to tell the consumer, we don't have it in goats, knock on wood, So has anybody been sickened by raw milk with bird flu? No. Has somebody been implicated? Yeah. Can you prove it? No. Bird flu, what a horrible because what do you do with it? It's off and on for the last 20 years at least. The United States has been worried about what if bird flu mutates and starts making people sick? Because we have historical records, right? Spanish flu back in whenever the heck it was bird flu. And the reason we call it bird flu or swine flu is it's a flu virus and it's naturally occurring in birds or pigs. And it likes to do like my, it's a mixing bowl is what it's called. I make chocolate chip cookies. I throw in some ingredients. We change it around and my cookies change a little bit. Well, the bird flu changes a little bit. And so in the mixing bowl, the virus changes. And what the government is worried is that it's going to change in this mixing bowl and become really bad for humans. Like Spanish flu. Of course, remember back in Spanish flu days, we didn't have closed sewage system. We didn't understand we needed to use soap and water and brush our teeth and that we should wash our hands and things like that. We do understand basic cleanliness and hygiene now, although we have a whole lot more people in a lot less space now. So bird flu last year changed a little bit and it made some cats sick. 12 out of 75 million cats in the United States got sick and died. And I'm very sorry for the 12 cats and the 12 owners, but I'm sorry, look at statistics. That is a microcosm. It's not 1,000 cats. Holy cow, could you imagine? No, it's 12 cats. And nobody wants that for their cat. But it's being misrepresented as, God, they're all going to die. Right? We don't want it to mutate and become that. We certainly all lived whatever we lived with COVID. And nobody wants to go through that again. And so that's what government is trying to do, is protect us from ourselves. But we also need to be able to live life. And there's an element of making a decision for yourself with government helping enough. So, okay, go back to raw milk. It could be dangerous. So put a sign on it. And then right? Sushi. You guys eat sushi? BC doesn't. Maybe sushi.
You do know that.
You eat sushi with your Diet Coke. No, BC doesn't eat sushi. But there's a warning at the sushi restaurant. Sushi restaurants are doing great, even though we could get sick.
Right. And as immunocompromised that I am,
right?
I'm a little bit more
You're going to be
aware,
more cautious. You should be.
but I'm not more cautious. I'm more aware, but I'm not more cautious. I mean, you've been out to my
You
property.
drink Diet Coke.
Yeah, and I got horses, and I fall into a pile of manure, and I go on. I
Yes.
drop but my whole where this came up is, and this goes back to one of your earlier rants. People do not rotate their pets' food. And we've learned that. We've learned that they'll even make the transition onto a fresh food, and then that's all they're going to feed, by golly, because their dog is doing well with it. And that's the end of that. So
you are lazy. I am. I don't rotate my food.
So I think the manufacturers do have a responsibility to make sure that food is safe because, again, statistically, it's shown that consumers do not treat raw pet food the same way as they treat their raw chicken.
Define that.
They assume
Prove that
it's
to
different.
me, because I disagree based on our assessment of salmonella. That this many humans, it's a zero. Those who can't see it, it's a zero. 0 humans are reported in the CDC database of having been sickened by raw pet food. 0. Where we've had humans die from kibble.
From kibble.
Right. Children.
No, I'm not arguing that point at all.
Okay.
But it's shown that, again, so let's say something comes through, and it's Rift Valley is the pathogen that they found. But they're worried that that's going to come over here, of course. But if something like that comes up and gets into the pet food, and those manufacturers are not testing for that, nor do they have the capabilities, because once again, they don't have the money for that. We're a small manufacturer. How can you expect us to test for all these things? Do they bear any accountability if their food? But let's even simplify it. Let's go E. coli. Let's go salmonella. Now, granted, we don't have any hospitalizations as we did. I mean, I was around in the big 2007. So when you mentioned 15,000 dead cats or whatever, I was selling pet food and people had cats dying in those numbers. And they didn't know to test for that. That altered ingredient, nobody was testing for that. In fact, they specifically were making sure that it couldn't be tested for. But you put that same situation out to a small real food manufacturer, they're going to say, we don't have money to test for any of it.
So where are you buying your ingredients? Many of our members buy USDA sourced and passed meats. So, okay, let's talk several different diseases. Bird flu, for example, like salmonella, is considered inherent in the animal. Okay. Salmonella is inherent in poultry. That's court cases. It's by definition, the USDA allows a certain level of salmonella in the poultry. That exact same poultry goes to our manufacturer's food. It's the exact same food. It should be handled the same. We humans are not meant to eat it because it takes far too long to go from our mouth to our butthole and we get sick. Dogs and cats mouth to butthole really fast. Boom, they push it through. If there's a little bit of salmonella, if they have a good intestinal system, they don't get sick. And it is based on good intestinal system. So that's you have helpers.
Cats.
Have helpers.
So that's salmonella. We don't know enough about bird flu yet to say that, but our manufacturers, our members of NextGen, are using USDA sourced and passed poultry meat. It has bird flu in it. So it's the responsibility of the USDA to be testing for it, and they are. but it has bird flu in it. And so now it's being sent out. And so what happens when the FDA is now regulating something that was passed by the USDA? You've got two agencies with two different standards, and yet pet food is for pets, and the FDA is regulating as if it's for humans. So this is how swine flu, African swine fever, and your Rift Valley fever, and there are a bunch of other potential foot and mouth disease, hoof and mouth being different diseases. They're all being monitored. If you're importing meat, they're supposed to be inspected before coming in. So the inspection agencies are supposed to be checking for these agents before it's allowed in the US. The manufacturer shouldn't actually have to check for these things until all of a sudden there's a worldwide outbreak. So bird flu has kind of changed, and the FDA changed manufacturers' responsibilities in January when they put out their policy guidance saying, we just need you to write about it. Basically, that's what they said was, you need to think about bird flu. It needs to be in your food safety plan. That's all the FDA said. Then they're the field agents who then took it to the next level and said, oh my God, we found one live virus. Recall, recall, recall. Even though that same meat, the companies that had the recall bought USDA passed meat. The USDA had already inspected and said, it's okay.
So maybe I'm misremembering this. Wasn't the testing being used for bird flu in anywhere? No, it's me. It's my dog. Wasn't it? It was the PCR testing, right? That it wasn't differentiating between live and dead.
PCR doesn't differentiate live and dead. PCR says DNA is present. And it doesn't matter if the DNA is alive or dead according to PCR. It just says yes.
Mm-hmm.
Then until bird flu, the gold standard had been virus isolation, which is send it off to the lab, and the lab tries to create and grow a live virus. I mean, it's not really living because it's a virus, but if it's quote live, it can replicate. It can then go on and infect something else. And we were saying, prove it, prove it, prove it, until the FDA comes out and says, you know what? Once it's in this food thing, the virus isolation test is not very accurate. True, don't know. So then we got whole genome sequencing, which is still a piece of DNA, just very detailed. And allegedly, what was found in the food was allegedly found in the infected animals. And yet, when the manufacturer asked for the data, the manufacturer was never given both pieces of information. So the couple of manufacturers who did recall did it out of an abundance of caution, just because they love animals and they didn't want any cats sick. And so unfortunately, and these companies all bought, I am not lying, the USDA passed and sourced meat. So, and I'm sorry for the 12 cats, but it's 12 out of 75 million. That's very low statistics. Very low statistics. No one wants to be a statistic. I get it. I'm going to get bashed.
Yeah, like when most consumers think of food safety, they are thinking of Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, right? And there is a zero tolerance policy for that in raw pet food, right?
Right.
By the FDA.
Okay, right. Keep going,
Right?
and then I might more carefully box in what you just said. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's my hope, is that you do more carefully box that in. I'm sure BC has plenty more questions. My biggest question, and I don't know that we can answer this, but like, as what I consider myself to be an educated consumer, my concern isn't with Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria. I just don't have that concern with what I feed my pets. What my concern is, why have the recalls in kibble over the past handful of years decreased so significantly?
Because they're not being tested?
I know. That's like, I feel like there's this false sense of security being created.
Really?
See, and
That's
I
what
would have
sarcasm
answered
looks and
differently.
sounds like. Go ahead, BC.
Now, keep in mind, I mean, pet food manufacturing is, I mean, that's my thing, and it's kibble. I like it. I've been in plants. I've made food, et cetera, et cetera. I would say that testing has gotten better at the manufacturing side of it. Manufacturers have more tests at their availability that their in lab can do, where a lot of times those tests had to be sent out, and that the ingredient suppliers are also doing more testing because they're tired of getting refused loads at the dock door. When my friends in the business go out there and they core the grain cart or whatever they do, and they come back and say, yeah, we're not taking this load, go on with it. So I would say it's a combination of all of it. Certainly the government doesn't have money to do testing. And I would say most pet food on the market, regardless if it's kibble or raw or fresh, most of it has not been tested by a government.
Agreed.
We are relying completely on manufacturers. And most of the time you're talking about co-packers. And once again, those co-packers are going to be so heavy on their ingredient suppliers. If you send me a bad load twice, we're never doing business with you again because
Right.
you have held up everything. So it's gotten a lot more stringent on the manufacturing side.
Which is what the FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act, was supposed to do. They were supposed to every manufacturer is supposed to have a food safety plan. Well, my sarcastic remark, because I'm good at those, ever since the beginning was that's good manufacturing practices. And that's what manufacturers should have been doing all along, is you should have a food safety plan. You should go, well, there's a light bulb right above this machine. Gosh, it could break. Why don't we put a cage over it? And that goes in your food safety plan. And so this is good food safety. FSMA, the Food Safety Modernization Act, came out, and one of the things that's supposed to happen is every food manufacturer, people or pet food, is supposed to be inspected every 5 years. Government thinks they don't have money now and they want to balance a budget. They have never been able to inspect every manufacturer. I have manufacturers who have never been inspected. But the opposite side of that exact same coin, flip it over, and the other side is once you're considered a bad player, in quote marks, from the FDA, as in you come on their radar once, you never get off their list. If you come on their radar once, they will inspect you year after year without zero forgiveness. They are going to regulate this one company into compliance. But if nobody else has, if other 15 companies haven't ever been inspected and don't come up on their radar, they never get inspected. And so that's not really what FSMA was supposed to be doing. The manufacturers absolutely are responsible for their safety. And I agree, BC, there are some great tests that the manufacturers can now look for the pathogens, the salmonella, the listeria monocytogenes, because that's the only bad listeria. There are a whole bunch of other ones that don't matter. E. coli DEC, which is the Shiga toxin. It's another E. coli. These are the ones that make people sick.
And that's what we're worried about.
Make people sick from pet food. None of you people should be eating pet food. You should eat people food. Pet food's for pets. It needs to be safe, but dogs and cats with a normal, healthy system can eat salmonella. I cannot.
Mm-hmm.
I get sick. They might get a little bit of soft poo tomorrow and then be fine and then go eat the cat poop and get soft poo that day too. So there are a lot of safety things in place now. Okay, how come more kibble companies aren't getting in trouble? So how long did it take for the government to figure out melamine? Long time, because it hadn't been identified. So they didn't know how to search for it. And I think the only reason they found it, boy, talk about the good and the bad, is because animals continued to die. It was awful. Think back a year and a half ago, one of the big manufacturers was implicated in a lot of animals with nasty bloody poo and some deaths and stuff. And the government did a bunch of research and they never found anything. And I know people who did private investigation trying to find, couldn't ever find anything, and animals died. And there was never an announcement. There was never a public health for pets warning. And humans weren't sick. It's awful. A lot of
If we go back
back then.
to melanine, and correct me if I have this wrong, but that was discovered by a manufacturer. That wasn't even government that
Was it?
discovered. Well, that's what I have always heard. Now,
Okay.
again, it was one of the big five at the time, but yeah, it was discovered there first, and then of course
No.
confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was fresh out of vet school and still recommending food I would never recommend anymore.
Right.
I
think we
didn't
all-
know
we
any
all
better.
were.
I know
We
better
all-
now. I know better. I've had more education than what they force fed us in vet school. So that's good info, BC. I don't know.
Well, and listeria, the problem with listeria, again, if I'm correct, is it's all about the lab. I mean, the manufacturing plant. Listeria, you really need to be checking in your facility, not necessarily in the food, because it can
contaminant.
really be rampant, and you'll never find it in the food because it can hide in little pockets
It's a contaminant.
where you catch. Yeah. So
Things that all bacteria are that way. I mean, so is the flu. It's all that way. Yeah. And for the most part, Listeria monocytogenes is considered to be a contaminant. It likes refrigeration, so it grows in the fridge, doesn't grow in the freezer, and it does not grow at room temperature. But if you kill every other bacteria in that pile of meat, Listeria goes, yeah, baby, put me in the fridge. I am gonna grow. And it makes humans sick. Again, don't eat the dog food.
Don't eat the dog food. And wash your hands.
Please.
Wash your hands.
And wash the dog dish.
And clean, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, wash the dog
And
dish.
don't leave it on the floor because the 3-year-old children go, look, Fluffy eats out of this. Let's pretend. Let's have tea. Because that's what kids do. So parenting is protect our kids and, teach our kids from the beginning. Raw pet food, raw chicken, wash your hands, cut your veggies, then your meat. Don't do your salad after the chicken. We've been told good food handling for decades for people food, the exact same good food handling training. Good food handling is what has made humans have much less disease because now we know you cut your lettuce before you cut your chicken. Wash your cutting board. I got 6. One's for meat, one's for veggies, one's for onion. Nothing fruits on the onion board. I will yell at you when my cantaloupe tastes like onions. But that's how we learn things. And there was a period of time when people washed their meat. And now the researchers are finding that when people wash their meat, they're actually sprinkling bacteria all over the sink.
right. No, you take the hose and you spray it down. And actually everything that you just talked about, by statistics, you should be doing with kibble.
You should.
Kibble, absolutely. You should be washing your bowl. You should be washing your hands after handling that kibble. There's more chance of a contaminant in that kibble than there is that fresh or raw food.
So, okay, with fresh food in general, manufacturers are using safety measures, some that I can name off the top of my head. Some are being cooked. Some are using HPP, some are using bacteriophages, some are doing test and hold, some are doing multiples including test and hold. So I'm curious, BC, like where are the shortcomings that you're seeing?
Don't think, I'm rapidly trying to list manufacturers in my head. There's not enough test and hold happening in the real and fresh food movement. I do not think enough. In fact, I don't think most of the manufacturers, now again, there are so many of them, but
Mm-hmm.
test and hold is not being done enough, in my opinion. And I'm waiting on Dr. Kathy because she should know more than I do.
I'm going through my list in my head, just like you just did. Go tick, 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 tick. There are
Yeah,
a good number of manufacturers who rely on the supplier.
I think that's a problem too,
Except
because in
that
fact, if
worked for E. coli 0157H7 is it ultimately went back to the farm, the feedlot, and when the producer of the beef stopped providing deadly E. coli contaminated meat, everybody downstream all was protected.
if we look at, now again, I hate to mention a kibble, but Natura Pet Products was a great company. It was one of the kibbles that I did recommend at the time. Now, this was 20 years ago, darn near 15, 18 years ago.
Change.
And when they got bought out by Procter and Gamble, which Procter and Gamble killed that brand and it's not even being made anymore. But anyway, when they bought it, they stopped test and hold, and they stopped test and hold because they brought in their proprietary kill step. Procter and Gamble had a proprietary kill step, and I toured that plant because I made a big thing in Indiana. I threw all my Natura out on the curb, donated it to the food shelters, and I said, I'm not going to sell this food, even though it's my number one food. And it got picked up by media. A great vice president, he's no longer with the company, with Procter and Gamble, called me up and said, I will fly you to that plant and show you what's different and show you anything you want to see. And I went to that plant and I asked about test and hold, and he said, we don't do that because of our proprietary kill step. And I said, that's wonderful, but there's a huge problem there. About 3 months later, they had the first massive recall. At the end, problem with that was it was being contaminated by workers after the kill step. That's the problem with relying on your manufacturers or your ingredient suppliers.
Agreed.
Is because it's going to get contaminated in the
Agreed.
manufacturing process, which is why test and hold, in my opinion, should be industry standard.
You are
Nobody cares about my
100% right.
opinion.
You're 100% right. And even on HPP product, very often on HPP, it goes back to after it's been processed, it goes back to the manufacturer, and they often repackage it. Boom, there's your contamination. People food and pet food. There's a lot of people food that's HPP that people don't realize about. Anyway, agree 100% BC. And you're right, not everybody does test and hold. Yeah, and excuses. The excuses are, well, it costs a lot of storage. I know. How much does a recall cost you? I hear you loud and clear on that one. Yeah, I'm writing that down. Got my note maker.
She's taking a lot of notes from you
I
today, BC.
know. This is beautiful.
And I'm good, and I'm kind of backing off because, I mean, we've hit that hour mark or so, and I wanted to make sure Jessica gets all her questions.
Hours. What are you talking about?
Y'all
Wait,
can
does
talk as
anybody
long as
listen
you
to
want.
3-hour podcasts? I mean,
Sorry, but I listen, but I almost exclusively, anytime I have time that I'm going to consume media, I'm listening to probably a Joe Rogan podcast, and those are generally 3 hours. So, yes,
goodness,
people will.
there's no way.
People will. If it's an
love it.
interesting conversation, I
Right.
am very interested in this conversation. So,
Well, then I would say the last kind of, we've touched on it a little bit, but the biggest problem that we have in the real and fresh and cooked, there is no standardized policies and protocols. There's the Food Safety Act, which says certain things. But once again, I come back to, if company A has discovered something, they're not going to share it with company B. In fact, they're going to figure out how to migrate it so that they don't have to share it with anybody if they could.
Right.
And that's where, and now correct me if I'm wrong, but as long as I don't put that AFCO sticker on my food, if I start buying goat's milk, I register with the state chemist here in Indiana, I can sell that as a pet food supplement, because it wouldn't be a complete imbalance. The USDA, FDA, and any governing bodies besides the state chemist would have no idea that I'm making a pet food.
If you never leave Indiana, what you have just said is correct. And there are a bunch of small companies, and that's what they do.
And if I leave Indiana, what triggers that, though? Is that voluntarily? If I start selling it on the internet?
Now you're talking apples and oranges. Are you trucking it over to Illinois? Or are you selling on the internet? Two totally different. The internet, yeah. Internet's a gray area, and it depends on the state. There are some states that are actively looking for manufacturers who are selling, and some of the state regulators are actually ordering that online pet food to prove that it's being sold across state lines, to then tell the manufacturer, you need to register in this state. So that's that. Yeah, there are savvy.
So they have money to have people sleuthing the internet. But okay.
You know what? It's a couple of states who have a pet peeve.
Yeah.
And it depends on who's in charge of the office. So, for example, bird flu, Oregon and Washington have a pickle up there, you know what, about bird flu, where most of the other states are like, okay, is it on your food safety plan? Okay. Like California was like, okay, but it came from California. But anyway, Washington and Oregon had a pickle up their hiney about it. So certain states have a pickle up their rear end about online sales, in the way that the laws have now been written in the last 2 years of the AFCO, the model bill, because it's an example, it isn't national law, that website is part of a label. So if you sell your food online, what it says on your website is part of your label. And there are a couple of states that will read everything. Some states will come looking for you. Many don't have the manpower to do it. And so it's who's in charge of the office and who has a pet peeve. So, yeah.
A lot of times it's snitches like myself.
It is snitches. Yeah.
I got stop sold long time ago by the state of Indiana for selling a hemp-based pet food. Grandma Lucy's. It was great pet food.
They stopped selling trouble for that.
Well, when the state of Indiana stopped selling me and pulled it off my shelves because they knew I would sell it underneath the counter like I was on Life Extension, it was sitting in Chewy's distribution center right down the street from me. And I knew that because I had a friend at the distributor. And I went back to the state chemist and I said, this is how much of Grandma Lucy's hemp seed products that Chewy is receiving here in Indiana. Why aren't you stopping them? And they said, we can't tell where they're selling it. So they could be selling it to Illinois, which would be just fine. And
no, it wasn't.
I did not like that a lot.
Because the FDA said hemp in pet food is illegal. No. It doesn't matter what state you're in. I've heard of several people telling on Grandma Lucy's. So that was a cop out on Indiana's part.
Well, I was trying to get Chewy in trouble. I wasn't trying to get Grandma Lucy's in trouble.
Yeah. So isn't that interesting? Because Indiana has a reputation for being nitpicky, would be a generous, kind term. in their review of labels, and yet they allowed commerce
because
like
the
that.
field inspector did not want to have to go through the Chewy distribution center.
Right.
Now, again, I will qualify that. This was years ago, and they've changed the food inspector that's out in the field. But back then, he wasn't interested in walking that
He didn't
that
want to work that
distribution
hard.
center. No,
No,
but
it's
the
like a
label
cop
people in the
pulling people
audience,
over. He won because he got the food off your shelf. Boom, I can take the rest of the month off. Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Low hanging fruit.
exactly.
But Grandma Lucy's doesn't make that anymore, do they?
So at the end of the day, consumers have to take on the responsibility of educating themselves.
Regardless of pet food or people food. Like a neck.
So what I'm curious from both of you, from your different perspectives, when a consumer is going to choose a pet food, what should they be looking for?
When we are talking specifically about pet food safety,
Yeah.
I would tell them to call the manufacturer and ask what are their protocols when it comes. Use some specifics. Ask them about bird flu. Ask them about test and hold. If they're not doing test and hold, what are they doing? What is their kill step? If they don't like providing that information, move on to the next manufacturer that will tell you that.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of this, when I reached out to you, Jessica, was because I've been doing a lot of that for people that I'm consulting with. And I'm getting told, yeah, I'll tell you, but you can't tell anybody, or we're not telling you. It's a big secret. And I hate that. And I don't think it's doing our industry well. And I think a lot of us, especially in the real food communities, are making assumptions about some manufacturers that you should not be making assumptions about. That's the other, before I turn it over to Dr. Kathy on that, the other thing I would tell you is audit. Because as we've said, people are not rotating their manufacturers well enough. If you think BC's Pet Food is doing great for your dog, you've already asked all the questions of me when you started feeding it a year ago. You should be calling me again in a year, because I might have changed. I may not believe in test and hold anymore. So you got to audit your manufacturer as well if you want the absolute best for your pets.
I think I agree with everything you said. I agree. Call the
I
manufacturer.
am going to have to bookmark this because you've agreed with me multiple times and I've stumped you multiple times, and
Once.
I've never done that.
Twice.
See, twice. Okay,
Man.
I'll take it. I'll take it as a win.
That's awesome. No, I agree completely. All right, let's talk politics. Not really politics. You mentioned way back at the beginning that maybe AFCO's going away. Ooh, boy, there's a lot changing. So what, a year and a half ago, the PURR Act, PURR, was proposed by Pet Food Institute. And basically what they said was, let's move it all to the FDA. But now the new government is like, whoa, now, hold on.
We don't want to spend the money.
It's all going back to the state again. So it's been fascinating watching the state regulators. A year ago, I think it was AFCO in August. Were you at that one, Jessica? Was that the one when Stan cried?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stan Cook from Kansas, he's now retired, because if the PURR Act was passed, all the state regulators in the room, all 500 of, 200 of them, because the rest is industry, could potentially have been out of a job, and it was all going to the FDA. And so for about 2 months, we heard, well, I don't know. We don't know how things are going to go, because the FDA published the whole chapter 6 out of the AFCO official publication. Is like, oh, it's been public. They're not going to make any money anymore. Now all of a sudden, AFCO's back and busy, and they're doing stuff, and they're not the least bit worried about their jobs again because the whole deregulation. And it's fascinating to watch the behavior of the state regulators, because a year ago they were shaking in their shoes, afraid that they weren't having a job. And now I think they have job security.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a lot of changes, and It's going to be an interesting future to see how things change. I think all of us can probably agree. Well, yeah, easy. We all agree we want pet food to be safe. We
Yeah.
probably have different definitions of what safety looks like and or how much need for regulatory intervention there is. But I agree with you, BC. The manufacturers should be transparent. They should say, this is what we do. Here's how we keep your pet safe. And you know what? If you have an immune suppressed animal, don't feed straight up raw. Or if you do, understand you have an immune suppressed animal and you're feeding straight up raw, accept the responsibility. If I go get sushi and I go order, is it the puffer fish that kills?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I order puffer fish, I walked in the door and I read the sign at the front door. It's my own choice. I'm not going to sue the restaurant if I get sick. If I die, then, my family's not going to sue because I walked in and I agreed based on the sign. Every pet food, kibble, cooked, canned, should all have a safety warning on it. Maybe all food should have a safety warning on it. Xylitol. I have a client years ago, was making sweets for church and decided, oh, they get too much sugar. I'm going to use xylitol. The wiener dog ate it. He died. She was so upset. She called the xylitol company and said, why isn't there a warning? And what was their caveat? They're out. Dogs aren't our intended consumer. Okay. And so then the little man died. How do you compare that with the antifreeze companies? The antifreeze companies are now, some of them are putting on their packaging, dogs and cats may die if they drink this. Don't leave it laying around on the ground. So you've got a
I think
company.
it's on there.
Yeah, you've got a company who's willing to accept it. And or some states have legislated that the antifreeze has to say that because enough pet parents said, enough. It's got to say it. Got to protect the animals. When we were doing pet food labeling modernization preparation, it took 10 years in AFCO to come up with new pet food labels like we were supposed to do 17 years ago. One of the discussions was safety statements and symbols to put on pet food. And this was before all of us got kicked off. And the people on the call were like, well, we think raw pet food needs to have safety warnings. And I'm like, whoa now. All food needs safety warning. And I got out my statistics and I said, kibble has made more people sick. And I had one member from the FDA who agreed with me. Then there was that lawsuit and then I got kicked off and I'm back now. But so then it made it through and the result was nobody's required to put those safety statements on their food. They are available if people or manufacturers wish to use it. Most raw pet food manufacturers actually say, this is raw. It may contain harmful bacteria. Don't eat it. It's for your dog. It's for your cat. Most of them do. They don't all. They should have the sushi warning like the sushi restaurants. They should.
Remember that labeling, one of the symbols discussed was the biohazard. We're going to put the biohazard symbol on raw pet food. I mean, but yeah, luckily that did not pass.
Luckily, it didn't pass. They were just common sense things like keep refrigerated, throw out if in doubt, that sort of thing. But yeah. Yes, because you got to continue participating after the rest of us got kicked off for a while because you
No,
were.
I got banned too.
You did get banned also.
Yeah, I was a consumer advocate on the board and got banned and never came back. And I fought it. I begged and pleaded with them, and they were not interested in me coming back at the time.
You know, it's funny because that came from the executive director at that time,
Who I did not like. But once again, I mean, that's the biggest, you want to talk about the biggest weak link when it comes to consumers, what you just were talking about, Jessica, is you notice neither one of us said, look for the AFCO statement, because we don't care about the AFCO statement, because AFCO is really nothing. AFCO is a way for state employees to go on a little brief vacation and get paid for it. It has nothing to do with pet food safety. Now, once again, this is the opinions of BC and not necessarily of the others on this podcast.
Right?
But that's the whole purpose of AFCO. It has very little to do with real pet food safety.
AFCO originated with livestock feed 120 years ago. Food didn't exist when AFCO was created. AFCO was created so that the states could figure out how they were going to regulate livestock feed as it went across state borders. And then, I don't know, 70s, all of a sudden they went, pet food exists. And then around 2000, they went, raw pet food exists and raw milk for pets. Yeah, agreed. AFCO complete and balanced, whatever. It means your kibble has enough nutrients to maintain life.
Yeah. Oh, and keep in mind, I know we're winding down here, but my last little story I want to say about AFCO, because I was there. I was there the moment that Dr. Kathy was booed by the state regulators for just proposing that maybe plastic isn't the best thing to feed the cows. She was booed.
Wow.
And it wasn't audience members. I mean, it was audience members too.
It was
the state regulators sitting at the board. And I was there for that moment. And I was also there when they called our good friend Roxana a hippie for some of her thoughts.
Vegetarian hippie.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
That's where I come from when I say AFCO's not doing anything really good for our pets.
I can't. I mean, that's such. Part of me wants to get angry and say that it's intentional, but I don't. I mean, in these cases, I don't think it is. I think it's short-sightedness.
Ignorance.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
The fact that we're finding a credit card size worth of plastic in the human brain at this point when we die is astounding. And to think that we can feed it to the animals that we are then eating from, and it's not going to affect us in the long term, like that, I can only, it sounds very short-sighted on their part.
They're keeping it out of the landfill. They are very proud of reducing waste to the landfill by upcycling the waste. And gosh, can you imagine if it's a credit card in us? How big is it in our pets? Since they're getting the waste from our food.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine. I really can't.
Right.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad to me.
Yeah. There's what would be my big safety thing. It's the recycled waste, which is why I represent fresh pet food manufacturers. And that's why it's been 9 years, when I relinquished my veterinary license and started the trade association. It's because it's critical to me that if people want it, they can find fresh food for their pets. And nobody represents these manufacturers at AFCO until I came along and formed the trade association. And I'm now on the committees. And even though we all got kicked off, the individual chairs, I talked to each one every meeting until we got formally welcomed back in. I was always welcomed to represent fresh food. And I asked each one permission. Can I still sit at the table? And they're like, sure, Kathy, come on. And I'm like, thank you. I can still represent food, even though that executive director was close-minded. Yeah. The executive director, I think, is pretty good. Pretty fair. Pretty good.
Well, and that's what, I know when we come into a discussion on pet food safety, that I think is what most people are thinking of: Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, the, pathogenic bacteria. But I do think of pet food safety as quality of food and not feed. right? Like that is something that I think is more important to our animals than Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria.
To find food and feed to mean the same thing. And that's very frustrating. And I would agree that that might be safety. And how about, weren't you there, Jessica, for the copper discussions?
No, I was last year was the only one I went to, and
They were
like
finishing
they
the
said,
copper
yeah,
discussions.
they said
Right.
no, we're not gonna. They just said nope, we're not gonna set a limit.
Yeah.
End of discussion. And that was all they said.
Because of implications of copper storage disease in dogs could potentially be exacerbated by high copper in the pet food. And there are lots of biological factors that go into that. Some dogs are going to have problems and some aren't. And right. So you're right. We could go on. It is good. You scheduled 3 hours. I'm kidding. But that's a safety issue also.
It is.
And making a maximum limit for copper and a middle of the road for copper. So it's voluntary. If a company wants to say have restricted copper, they can, or limited, or whatever the word is. It just wasn't written into the model bill. But a manufacturer can do that so that if they're trying to help, and who would do that? A manufacturer who had a dog with copper storage disease or with liver disease or failure, and it was linked to copper, and that's who would do it. And there are a few manufacturers who do have limited copper foods. You have to call them. They don't put it on their label because the regulators are all, no, it doesn't say that you can say that, but it doesn't say that you can't say it. And who wants to submit your label to Indiana 75 times? And 5 other states. It's not just Indiana, but there are under 10 that are pickier than others.
Kentucky.
Go ahead.
She's not as much anymore.
Oh, well, that's good. Kentucky used to be one of the worst.
She used to be. I don't know what changed.
She
Overall,
spent some time as the director or the
maybe so.
chair.
Overall, she's mellowed. I see her smile.
Well, I think we came into this, at least BC thought that there was going to be like some opposition here, but it sounds like you two pretty much are on the same page, and I appreciate that.
Just
We're
different
close.
perspectives.
We're close.
Close
Yep.
enough. And I have some great new notes. Like Calvin. Yes. And BC, you made some beautiful points. And they absolutely are things that the manufacturers need to address. Transparency is key. Melamine would not have happened if transparency were there.
Yep. And if all real and fresh pet food manufacturers were a member of your association, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
I have to work one job and it would. So if you guys are listening and you're not a member, contact me.
Yeah.
Reach out.
Or ask these guys, they'll tell you how to find me.
I'm telling you, the last year, I'm probably gonna do it again this year. Last year, when I was walking around Super Zoo, every pet food manufacturer I talked to, I was like, "You're." First of all, I said, why are you not at AFCO meetings? And then I said, are you part of Next Gen? I did with like everybody I talked to.
And they all said, I never heard of it, right? You probably found 3 that were members.
I found a couple that were members. Good. Yeah. And everybody was just like, those meetings are so boring. I'm like, I realize, but this is literally what you do.
They are pure torture. You guys have been there. It's in Omaha in October.
In August, yeah.
Yeah, but there's some good manufacturing facilities in Omaha.
Well, then I expect you to show up, Beast.
Might have to do some tours.
I'd have to.
Do some tours.
Do some tours.
Yes, so I'm not at all paid for any of this, but I do go around talking to manufacturers about, even when I interview them, I'm like, on the podcast, we get off the podcast and I'm like, are you with Next Gen?
Thank you. Perfect. Have people start thinking about it. And we might be the rabble rousers, because I was told that. All I did was laugh. I'm like, you're right. We are. That's how we change the system. And the idea that we're looking for with change with Next Gen is making it better. better. It's right there on our front page. We're talking transparency. We're not trying to have secrets. I'm shocked, BC, that there are fresh pet food manufacturers who are keeping that stuff a secret. I'm very disappointed. And that would
There are a lot.
Me too.
Yeah.
I am too.
Yeah.
Well, I think I certainly enjoyed this conversation. Is helping me to formulate better questions for pet food manufacturers that I have on the show as well. So I appreciate the two of you for coming and talking and having this discussion and having it in front of a large audience.
Absolutely.
You two are awesome. I appreciate you both. I, of course, will have both of your profiles linked in the show notes. Check out, and just because we're here, Dr. Kathy does do consultations still, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have two hats. One is the trade association, and the other is healthy possibilities with a paw. And I don't care what you call me for. If you want help and guidance, it always starts with fresh food, which is why I run the trade association, because that fresh food needs to be available. You can't get good health without quality food. Oh, wait,
You can't.
it's right there.
You're absolutely right. And BC's wife, Kat, has the Ninja Groomer, which obviously, if you're in Indiana, that's something you can check out. But if you are not in Indiana, you can also check out her socials because that is so fun.
Awesome post.
Follow the Ninja Groomer.
Awesome post.
Yes. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I think this was
pleasure.
an excellent, excellent chat, and I hope that it helps people make better decisions about pet food as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end for this week. You guys have a great rest of your day. Give your pets some extra love from myself, Kathy, and BC this week. Talk to you next week.
Thank you.
All right, pet parents, you already know that I talk all the time about needing to stop as much as we possibly can feeding our fur babies garbage. For lack of a better word, that's what we talk about here a lot. And again, doing the best we can, that is the message above any and everything else. The more we learn, the more we know we need to make some changes. And this episode is powered by Legacy Biome. This is no BS. And this is why I think you need Legacy Biome. So Legacy Biome offers premium. When I say premium, I mean premium FMT, fecal microbiota transplant capsules. These are products for your dog designed to restore and support a healthy gut microbiome. Yes, you heard me. Top tier microbiome therapy straight from nature's playbook. Gut health isn't optional. We talk about this all the time. It's not optional. It drives digestion, immune strength, allergy resistance, mood, and even chronic disease risk. So if your pet's gut is out of whack, their whole system is out of whack. If you've learned nothing from me thus far, I think you should know that. So Legacy Biome tells us that their donor animals live on a raw, organic diet in pristine, chemical-free environments, generations bred to preserve a rugged and unaltered microbiome. No antibiotics, no pesticides, no synthetic crap, ever. And they screen those donors with the strictest protocols in the industry. Kim's over here next to me, if you can hear her. So if you have a pet that is wrestling with chronic diarrhea, itchy skin, hair loss, allergies, rebounding from antibiotics, that's a thing too. Legacy Biome is your weapon. Heck, you can just use it proactively to build a bulletproof gut and immune health. So don't worry, vets handle this. FMT is administered rectally often through veterinarians' offices, but we don't always have access to that. So what's the next best thing? FMT capsules that are enteric coated that you can get delivered straight to your home from the most pristine donor dogs ever, from Dr. Margot Roman, as a matter of fact. So top integrative vets across North America swear by Legacy Biome. That's not hype. That's physician grade endorsements. If you're ready to stop the gut wreck and start the comeback with your dog, head to legacybiome.com. That is legacybiome.com, LEGACYBIOME.com, and get some for your pet. And by the way, let me know how it goes. You know me. You can always reach out to me on Instagram. I'm here to talk to you all the time. I want to know. Let me know about it.
To try Legacy Biome for your dog, visit legacybiome.com and use code TPPR10, that's TPPR10, for 10% off.